Hello and welcome. You're watching the Wednesday edition of This Is Exclusive. Over 48 hours, a Singapore-based vessel is still on fire. Over 1,757 containers on board, but the mystery continues. The mystery of the missing containers. Tonight on This Is Exclusive, we not only take you through the details of the firefighting operations that are being carried out by the Indian Coast Guard, but ladies and gentlemen, it's a massive fire at sea. Explosions echoing across the Arabian water, and now a troubling mystery emerging from the smoke. The Singapore-flagged MV Van Hai 503 has been engulfed in flames for over 40 hours. A maritime emergency unfolding 65 nautical miles off the Kerala coast. What started as a fire in the forward bays has now become a full-scale crisis, with toxic smoke, hazardous cargo, and the constant risk of escalation as Indian Coast Guard and the Indian Navy teams battle around the clock to bring the situation under control. But as the firefighting continues, Republic's investigation has uncovered a stunning twist, one that raises far more questions than it answers. According to the official shipping records, the vessel loaded 157 containers carrying what they term it as dangerous IMDG. That's the class cargo from 6 international ports. But here comes the twist. Republic has found that 14 of the 143 containers that were loaded are now missing, undocumented, unaccounted for, and unexplained. The math simply does not add up. Could these missing containers hold the key to the continuous explosions on board? Were they quietly offloaded before final inspections? Or do they contain materials far more dangerous than declared, perhaps even banned substances? As salvors race to contain the threat and international experts are flown in to assess the damage, Republic is now putting out the questions that remain completely unanswered. Ladies and gentlemen, I just took you through all the visuals that came in over the last few days. Now, I'm going to take you through what's happening right now as we speak. What's the situation? But before that, let me take you through the headlines, and then I'm going to take you through first what's really happening off the Baipur coast. Mystery over multiple explosions on the Singapore cargo vessel grows. Republic investigates the case of 14 missing containers aboard the ship. Fire and thick plumes of smoke continue to engulf the vessel, 48 hours and counting. More salvors mobilized for operations. Communal clashes break out between protesters and the police and two communities in South 24 Parganas in West Bengal. Few people injured in the clashes. Violence and chaos ensues in Los Angeles. Mayor imposes curfew in downtown area amid mass arrests. Ladies and gentlemen, 48 hours and counting, the firefighting operations are still on. The fire on board has partially been contained, with approximately a little over 40% of the blaze suppressed as per the Indian Coast Guard. The vessel remains unmanned and adrift, drifting in a southeasterly direction. The vessel remains afloat but continues to emit heavy smoke. Fire is contained primarily in the forward bay area. No structural compromise has been reported as of now. However, ongoing thermal and gas risks exist near the affected compartments. What you see right now on your screens describe the situation as of today. This is the latest visual that has been accessed by Republic TV. In fact, this video was shot just about an hour ago. As you can see, this is the Indian Coast Guard's vessel continuing with the firefighting operation. In fact, the situation being as such that the Indian Coast Guard, or for that matter, investigators from the DG Shipping, are not in any position to get onto the ship. Only the fact that we are now being told that there has been another development. We are waiting for an official confirmation to come in, and we're going to break that information in a short while from now as to what they have been able to achieve by dousing the fire in the Forward Bay area. And that, remember, is the other developing news right now. On your screens right now is the condition of the vessel, the Singapore-based vessel, which is carrying about 1,754 containers. As you can clearly see, even now, 48 hours on, the fire rages on. And what I've been able to pick up from my sources is this, that because of the chemicals that this ship was actually carrying, many a times after they are in a position to douse the fire, it resurfaces. And that is the reason why it is getting extremely difficult for the Indian Coast Guard as well as the other agencies involved, particularly the Indian Coast Guard, carrying this out, this entire operation. We have now accessed 4 sets of images right now and videos that basically gives you a sense of what's the current situation right now. Now, the ship that was previously engulfed in flames has had the fire successfully doused only in the Forward Bay area. Currently located 90 kilometers from the shore, the vessel is being assisted by a tugboat to move further into deeper water. So what's the latest information that we have? We are now being given to understand the ship, which is roughly about 90 kilometers away from the shore, is now being taken deeper into the sea. In fact, a tugboat has now been used to pull this vessel, and they are essentially using a technique that has been employed by the Indian Coast Guard as well as the other officials right now. In fact, let me just take you through the details that is coming in from our reporters on the ground, and this is what we have got a confirmation about, that they have been able to connect the tow line. The tow line is basically a method by which the tugboat is connected to the vessel and the vessel is thereafter being pulled. Now, let me also go across to my colleague Ashwin, who's been tracking the story along with me right now here. Ashwin, I just spoke to the Coast Guard a short while back, and the latest details that we are essentially getting right now is that the tow line has been connected, which means that the plan right now is to pull the ship away from the current location so that it does not create any more trouble closer to the shore. Ashwin, if you can hear me, the latest development is with regards to the tugboat that has been used to pull this ship. I'm not very sure whether Ashwin can hear me right now, but just quickly to take you, ladies and gentlemen, with the breaking news now coming in. The latest development in the last 1 hour is this, that right now, in order to avoid any possible oil spill, and the fact that the salvos have essentially been brought in, they are now trying to take this away, take the vessel a little deeper into the sea. Right now, this is very much part of the international waters right now, part of the India Economic Zone. And what the Indian Coast Guard, as well as the other stakeholders, are basically trying to do is take it deeper into the sea, only to avoid any sort of marine disaster. And that is the reason why this method has now been employed. Now, these visuals that I'm showing you are the latest on your screens right now. So the fire is yet to be doused. So there is a lot of risk that is basically involved in pulling this vessel. And remember, this vessel is over 1,000 metric ton. And that is the reason, one, it becomes even more difficult for them to take this forward. In fact, what we are also going to do right now, take you through the details of what has happened over the last 48 hours and why there is a mystery. And the mystery we're going to unravel in a short while from now. It's a towering blaze at the sea. Explosions are echoing off the Kerala coast. Even a short while back, there was another explosion that was reported. It's a deepening mystery surrounding a cargo ship that was supposed to sail smoothly into Nhava Sheva port. Tonight, Republic brings you this latest from the firefighting front. A Singapore-flagged container ship MV Van Hai 503 has been burning for over 48 hours. The Indian Coast Guard and the Indian Navy remain on high alert, battling the fire and searching for 4 missing crew members. But this isn't just a maritime emergency. It's quickly turning into an international puzzle, and not just that. It could also turn out to be one of the biggest national security threat.
Off the coast of Baipur in Kerala, a massive firefighting operation is underway for over 48 hours. A Singapore-flagged container ship en route a port in Maharashtra from Colombo has been up in flames. The fire reportedly broke out at 9:20 a.m. on Monday. By afternoon, flames spread to adjoining containers, forcing the crew to abandon the vessel using lifeboats. Responding swiftly, the Indian Coast Guard deployed 4 ships and INS Surat for rescue and firefighting operations. And by nightfall, 2 Dornier aircrafts were airborne to assist. 10:16 a.m. on Tuesday, the Coast Guard confirmed that explosions and fires were still active. While the forward section of the ship was brought under control, the midsection and container bay remained ablaze. As of Wednesday, only 40% of the fire was doused. While firefighting operations continue, the Indian Coast Guard confirmed to Republic that the blaze had not been contained.
These are chemical fires and they take time to extinguish. Generally, till the time the fuel is available and the chemical reaction is ongoing, these fires generally have a tendency to go on and on. And they do react with the surroundings to, at times go up in intensity, and there will be times when we feel that they're doused and they can be reignited. So it takes time to deal with chemical fires. We got this report yesterday morning at around 9:15, and then we came to know that the ship is having multiple explosions, and a nearby ship reported that they can sight a ship near to them which is on fire.
And that 4 crew members were missing.
Immediately, we had our Dornier aircraft in the area. We sent her, and she could see that the vessel was spewing fire. There was a lot of explosions going on, and the communication with the master on board with the Coast Guard Dornier indicated that the master and the crew wants to abandon the ship. They were total 22 crew, of which 18 abandoned, were recovered. 4 of the crew, we presume that they were doing firefighting, and the master says during the course of firefighting, they have been missing after an explosion.
But the main questions remain on the ship carrying 157 containers of hazardous materials that are prone to spontaneous combustion. The shipping company based in Taiwan has so far evaded Republic's repeated inquiries. And now, there are bigger questions. What triggered the fire? Why was the ship carrying hazardous material? And where are the missing containers?
Well, Republic's investigation into the MV Van Hai 5035 fire has uncovered a startling discrepancy. While the ship essentially declared 157 containers across 6 port calls, including Kaohsiung, Hong Kong, Singapore, Port Klang and Colombo, as per the first report by the Indian Coast Guard, 14 containers are now missing with no explanation or documentation. Now, this breakdown shows 118 containers loaded in Kaohsiung, 9 in Hong Kong, 14 in Singapore, 2 in Port Klang, and none in Shekau, which happens to be in China, or even for that matter, Colombo. So if you add that up, it only brings it to about 143, which certainly does not add up. Now, this raises further questions. What is Van Hai Lines essentially hiding? Were they missing containers offloaded secretly, or are they part of their ongoing blasts on board? As the fire rages on, the missing container mystery could point to deeper lapses or concealed cargo. Ladies and gentlemen, let me try and break this up for you. This ship, which basically started its journey all the way from Singapore and thereafter made multiple port calls. Republic TV's investigation team did check with each of these port areas whether at all this ship, when they were making the port call, did they make any declaration or not. It turns out that it was selective in nature. We do not know as to why in Shekau in China there was no declaration that was essentially made, because each of the other places goes on to indicate that there was a declaration made, starting with 118 in the first place, and thereafter, as it was proceeding towards Nhava Sheva after Colombo, it turns out that they had already declared 143 containers with dangerous goods. Now, as per the Indian Coast Guard, they have information of 157. So what really happens to these 40? There's an official confirmation coming in from the Coast Guard that 15 to 20 containers are missing, and that could be because after the fire broke out, the explosions took place, some of the containers may have got displaced. But having said that, this has got even more deeper as to why there wasn't any clarity coming in from this particular shipping company about the total 143 containers and what is this 157 containers that the Indian Coast Guard was basically mentioning about, and whether at all this company has actually followed all the protocols in place. We have gone through the documents in each of these port areas, and this is where it adds up to. It's only about 143. The report that has been published by the Coast Guard mentions about 157. My colleague Aditya has dug deeper. It's a deep dive that we have essentially done to find out how many calls were made, how many port calls were made from the time the journey started, and thereafter what really happened. We're going to take you through some of the details here and how it all started, finally coming till where and what was the final destination. Here, ladies and gentlemen, the Nhava Sheva airport, the port was the final destination, but it starts with Kaohsiung in Taiwan with 118 containers. So that's what they made a mention. Then it basically traverses, the ship basically traverses and finally comes to Singapore. When in Singapore, 14 containers, they declared that they have 14 containers with dangerous goods. Then when they reach Port Klang, they make another call that 2 additional containers that they have, and these are dangerous goods. It continues to go on, and it turns out that by the time it reached in Colombo, they made a declaration. No declaration was basically made of any containers with dangerous goods. So it stands only till there. And as it was moving towards Nhava Sheva, that's where off the Bepor coast is when this fire was reported. So we are basically saying as each of these port calls were made, it turns out that they had only declared 143. So when they were off the Baypore coast, 157 is the information that the Indian Coast Guard had, even so much so that we have checked with the documents with the Kerala Maritime Board. Kerala Maritime Board says that only the logistics that they have or the manifest that they have is only of 143. The question is, what about the missing containers? Was there a deliberate attempt made by the company not to declare? We do not know. We reached out to the company on the first day itself. There to remember, there is a clear discrepancy with regards to the number of containers that they had on board and the number of containers that fell off. So there is no clarity really coming in, despite the multiple questions that were put out. My colleague Aditya has also taken you through some of the details that are now coming in. Take a look.
The public investigation into MV Van High Lines 503 has uncovered a startling discrepancy. Now, while the ship declared 157 of the containers across 5 port calls made from the first, Koh Sai Hang, second, from the Hong Kong, third, Singapore, fourth, Port Klang, and the last came from the Colombo. Now, as per the first report filed by the Indian Coast Guard, 14 of the containers are now missing without justification, clarification, or even documentation. Now, the breakdown shows 118 of the containers were loaded from Koh Sai Hang, 9 from the Hong Kong, 14 Singapore, 2 Port Klang, and none in Shikau or Colombo, which brings the number to total down to 143, which does not add up. Now, this raises some serious questions. The first, what is Van High Lines hiding? And second, were the missing containers were offloaded secretly, or are they the part of the explosions happening on board? Now, as the fire rages on, this missing container mystery could point to deeper lapses of concealed cargoes.
Well, in fact, we've reached out to the shipping company for a concrete answer on this entire deepening mystery right now. Ladies and gentlemen, before I end, I'm going to just quickly take you through of all that we know so far. We're digging deep because we believe that there is something more than what meets the eye right now. As we speak right now, only 40% of the blaze has been suppressed as of Wednesday. A short while back, we did check with the Indian Coast Guard. They said that the fire is still raging on and they're trying to douse it. They've been successful, but not completely. Firefighting continues in the forward bay areas that has been completed right now, enabling them to use the tugboat and push the boat further. Boundary cooling operations have essentially been initiated. That is, when I say the boundary cooling operations, that's basically around the ship that they are trying to carry on with the cooling operation. Preparations are underway to tackle the AFT section if the fire spreads. That's the further sections that you're seeing. They're trying to contain the fire to a particular area. But since the explosions still continue, that is the reason why it's becoming even more difficult for them. 5 vessels and tugs have also been engaged and en route to the ship. These tugboats are essentially being used so that they can take the vessel away from the shore. This is to avoid any maritime disaster. Tug Saroja Blessing, equipped with 80 kilograms of firefighting foam, is also being employed right now as we speak. Salvers from Spain, UK and Netherlands have already been identified. The salvers are essentially bringing in with the technique that is basically required to ensure that it does not result in any sort of oil spill, because what they have on board is far more dangerous. Chemists as well as salvage engineers have also been mobilized right now, and they are basically carrying out with these operations. All of that put together, ladies and gentlemen, there are several unanswered questions. Tonight, our spotlight was only on the fact that there are missing containers. We do not know what's in those containers and whether at all there was a deliberate attempt that was made by the shipping company to hide anything or not. We're still awaiting for a response coming in from the shipping company, questions that have been posed so far. That's all that we could pack in this edition of This Is Exclusive. My colleague Tanisha will be with you in the trending.